You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. So it has been oft discussed that the LSU went into the bowl game with 38 scholarship players. Brian Kelly has his work cut out for him trying to rebuild this roster. And that starts as the recruiting dead period is lifted and there are recruits back on campus, and that is on us. Billy Embody good enough to join us. Our guy's got a new gig now with On3 Sports. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing very well. All right, so first things first. Give us the deets. So we got to change that slate, though, because the slate still has your old employer on there. Give us the deets, man, on the new gig.
Yeah, it just kind of came at the right opportunity for me. I worked for Shannon Terry for a while when he was running 24/7 and have a lot of respect for what he wants to build it on 3 and using some of the NIL valuation analytics that he wants to add in there. And the recruiting database is going to be pretty impressive once it's all built out. And, it's a similar model, except a lot more emphasis on premium info. And that's what I want to bring to the table with the new gig.
Very cool, man. So y'all check out Billy. You can get all the links on his Twitter. He's at Billy Embody. Okay. There are so many directions to go with this offseason. It's literally an offseason like we've never seen before because of NIL, because of transfer portal, etc. There's so many directions. As a new coach, new coaching staff coming in. Let's start with what we know, Billy. Let's start with what we know about where Brian Kelly is targeting, what position specifically he's targeting right now.
Yeah, I think just reading the tea leaves so far, I think secondary help is one that they really want to target. We've seen that with Mekhi Garner and Joe Fouché committing to LSU this week. The Louisiana defensive back and the Arkansas defensive back agreeing to come on over and play for Brian Kelly. And then you look at Miles Frazier, the Florida International offensive lineman who signed during the early signing period. They have him enrolling, and they're not done targeting offensive linemen. We've seen the ULL transfer Osiris Torrance, another Louisiana native, get an offer, and he's on a visit today. And then you look at Tremont Shorts, the East Tennessee State FCS All-American, visiting this week. Those are two positions that I really feel like they're going hard after. And then I think going for best available players at wide receiver, defensive line, linebacker, we're kind of seeing it all so far.
Do you think we've seen the last, at least for now, maybe until spring, of the LSU defections, the guys currently on the roster that are looking to transfer out?
Man, with how thin they are, I would hope not. But you never know when somebody gets in with the new coaching staff and wants to move on or get a fresh start. And, of course, the transfer portal is as active as ever. So I think there could be a defection here or there, but that'll kind of be played out as spring workouts and spring practice starts, and these guys get a chance to see where they're at with the new coaching staff and if it's a fit for them.
All right, let's talk some specifics here. We know on the offensive line that Miles Frazier from FIU is already on board. You're losing 4 starters there, but a lot of guys played a lot of snaps. You mentioned Osiris Torrance. What can you tell us there about that situation?
Yeah, Osiris Torrance is an interesting one. He's a Louisiana native who played for Billy Napier at ULL, had a lot of success, started immediately as a true freshman, and ended up being an all-Sun Belt first-teamer this year. He's a big guy at 335 pounds. He could play on the interior, and that's especially after Chason Hines declared today. That's a big position of need for LSU, and I think LSU and Florida are probably battling it out here. I've heard it the most about Florida as of late, but who knows? Maybe he gets in there with Brad Davis and really likes the plan. But I will say Rob Sale just got hired at Florida, and they've obviously got a little bit of a connection there. So that one just seems like an LSU-Florida battle, and hopefully the visit for LSU wows them, and that kind of starts to turn things.
Kyron Lacey, another ULL player, wide receiver, is also in the transfer portal. He's got an LSU offer. Is that interest mutual and legitimate?
Yeah, he's on campus right now for a visit. He wrapped up an Auburn official visit this week. Oklahoma's starting to push for him. And while his stats might not jump out on you, I encourage any LSU fans interested in this to go check out his tape from that Texas game. And specifically, he had a touchdown that was pretty explosive, pretty twitchy. He's a bigger bodied receiver. He's from Thibodeau and ended up a 4-star on 24/7 Sports after his senior year was all done. He was a two-sport guy, really good basketball player too, and he would kind of fit that big body to kind of pair with Brian Thomas as he continues to develop. So another position of need in that sense, and I think LSU's right there for him. Auburn doesn't have really any receivers coming back, so I think that's a big pitch for them. If he decides to kind of trim it down to Auburn and LSU, I think it's kind of a toss-up right now. But LSU, right when he hit the portal, was on him and let him know that there was an offer there for him. I think it was maybe his first offer that he tweeted out. So if the visit goes well, even though there's not a wide receiver coach announced, that would be a good thing for LSU to get him on board.
Are we all assuming that that's going to be Cortez Hankton?
Yeah, I think so. From everything we've heard, just the paperwork, and obviously he coached all the way to the end with the national championship. But he's a Louisiana guy, and I think that's important if you're Brian Kelly as he continues to kind of finish up that staff that now has some good national recruiters, but also some really some familiar Louisiana names to recruit. That would be the obvious name right now to kind of finish things out.
There are Billy Embody is our guest. I want to talk about some high school recruits here in a second, but let's talk about a couple more current SEC players that are in the portal that are considering LSU. And the guy, Mekhi Wingo, the defensive lineman from Missouri, actually just shared on his social media a screen grab with the location stamp of LSU's football ops. So what do we know about Mekhi Wingo? How big of a push is he for this LSU staff right now?
He's a huge position of need and also a big target for them. He actually played for Robert Steeples back when he was the Smith head coach there in St. Louis, so they have a close bond. Robert Steeples is making his way down to Baton Rouge to take over at corner, and I think he's somebody that's going to be the key for Mekhi Wingo here. He was an all-SEC freshman this year, really looks the part. I know he's a little bit shorter. He's no Mason Smith in that sense, but he was really productive this year, and they're pushing for him, and I think LSU sits in a great spot to get him.
And then the other is Greg Brooks, another Arkansas defensive back, a guy who plays some corner, which is certainly a position LSU needs help right now. What's the latest on Brooks?
Yeah, Greg Brooks is a former West Jeff standout. He's on campus for a visit right now. It wouldn't shock me if LSU is his pick, and I think that's kind of an overarching theme. Brian Kelly, I think, is understanding that getting some of these Louisiana transfers that are veterans and have produced at the big stages is something that he's prioritizing. Just look at the guys that have committed already. So I think Greg Brooks is one of the guys you've got to circle. I think LSU's the team to beat, and he's taken that visit today, and who knows, it could end up sealing the deal for him.
All right, so I'll ask you about some of these high school guys in a second. Can you go through the calendar with us, though, as far as so guys are on campus again? What's the calendar and the visits like?
Yeah, so the dead period just lifted for LSU a couple days ago, and they were able to start hosting guys with it being within a week of classes starting for the transfers at least. And then for the high school players, the dead period ends Friday. So if the coaching staff wants to get out and go do in-home visits, they can start doing that, and we'll really see things heat up on the high school front in that respect, I think. And then the last day of classes to register, I think, is January 27th or something like that. So that's probably the drop-dead date to add any mid-year enrollees.
All right, let's talk about some of the Louisiana kids who they're targeting still for this class. Maybe the biggest name in state that's on the board is Jacoby Matthews, a one-time commit from Ponchatoula. I've talked about it here. He's got serious interest and NIL interest as well from Texas A&M. What's it going to take to get Jacoby Matthews in this class?
I think down the stretch for Jacoby Matthews, I think, Texas A&M is still a player, but I would circle your Alabama, Florida, and LSU kind of battling it out for him. That's been the schools that I've heard the most about. Those are the ones he seems to be circling for official visits, and he can take one to LSU, and I think he ends up taking one. I think LSU sits in the best spot to get him, and what a position of need, and also some versatility. You know, he can drop down into the box. He can move around on the back end. He had a great run leading Ponchatoula to the state championship game. He's as big as it gets on the high school front for LSU right now.
Another who also delayed his announcement is Trevante Citizen, the running back from the Lake Charles area. Two-part here, Billy. Number one, how big of a need is running back, and where does LSU stand with Citizen?
I think it's a big position of need. You need guys to be available at that position, and LSU kind of ran into some struggles with that this year. I mean, you hope they don't have the luck they had with injuries in the past, but Trevante Citizen's a big position of need, I think, just because he's so explosive. He played both sides of the ball at Lake Charles College Prep and really was a standout, whether it was at linebacker or running back. He's got some good size to him. I think landing him is one of those keys to the class.
And then let me also ask about Westgate tight end Danny Lewis, who just picked up the offer.
Yeah, Danny Lewis had a great state championship game, was the MVP of that game for Westgate. That's where Tayshaun Butte went. Derek Williams is a five-star 2023 prospect from that school. Mike Denbrock was his recruiting coach at Cincinnati and is now on staff. So, I mean, that's a big target now for the staff that offer has gone out. And I think LSU and Florida are going to battle it out, but I think you got to like the Tigers in that one.
All right, last thing for you, Billy. And Billy Embody is our guest from On3 Sports. He's on Twitter at Billy Embody. Numbers. How are we expecting LSU is going to finish this class in February, or even beyond, potentially with transfers maybe in the spring or summer?
I think you circle that number of 29 to 31. That would be kind of the hope. You've got the guys you signed already, and a few of them are already enrolling. You've got that on the transfer front and the high school front. I think you want roster flexibility these days with, honestly, the transfer portal being a year-long recruiting process. There's not many dead periods in there. There's not many moments that it'll slow down. And if you go ahead and just fill up your class, you can't take any more, and you miss out on potential difference makers. So I think with the guys they've got on campus, those are the top targets. You hope they would get, pretty much all of them, and they could all help LSU right now. And then from there, you try to get those few high school guys on board and hope you end up with a total number around 29, I would say, would be really give them a lot of flexibility going into the spring and summer.
So it's not a situation where you would expect they'd save spots to backfill for next year.
I think they could. I think that's something that would help them. I think this 2023 class could be a really big one for Brian Kelly and the staff. Just all of those guys bringing their recruiting connections to the table and being able to put together something that would set the table for them to be successful for years to come.
He's on Twitter at Billy Embody, On3 Sports. Appreciate a couple of minutes, man. All the best. Talk soon.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt. Have a good one.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.